It is Tuesday, the 18th of January, 2022. A comment I've made often in my public talks and on my podcasts is that if you wish to get to the truth of a situation in a sea of mis- and disinformation, deliberate obfuscation, and just plain chaos and confusion, is to take what you're told by the mainstream media and the governments of the world, all paid, lying, career criminals, after all, and flip it on its head so that you get the exact 180-degree inversion. In this world of duality and polarities, we have a so-called ruling class who are, at their core, dark occultists and Satanists. And the satanic ideology and mindset is nothing to do with a supernatural entity called the devil. That's a simplification of the whole dynamic packaged for organised religion. But the mindset of Satanism is to take that which is natural, inherent to creation, that which is good, and to invert it so that you end up with a bastardized, completely reversed version of what you had before. This was the central tenet of Sabbatean Frankism, which many of the so-called elites today adhere to through their ritualistic practices, coming through many of these secret societies which, for the moment, still rule the world. So the originator of that whole way of thinking, Sabbatea Zephi, was all about taking religious festivals of the time. We're going back to the 1700s here. Dates of important significance to the pagan cultures that existed in those times, and making them satanic, dark occult holidays instead. And then taking dates, points in the year, that were associated with the opposite, with the bringing in of evil and darkness, and celebrating those dates. Then you had Jacob Frank, who emerged sometime later out of Germany, and he was the founder of a new breed of Sabbatean Frankism, which came to be embraced by Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Bavarian Illuminati, who was very much affiliated with Mayer Amschel Rothschild of that family. And that was the formation of the modern version of the Rothschild family bloodline dynasty. And we get an insight into the mindset through which that family and so many others of their ilk have operated. It's taking that which is good and making it bad. Bad meaning good, good meaning bad. It's a reminder that these dynamics are available to be tapped into at any point. And we have the free will to, again, shape and mould the type of reality we wish to experience and bring in by the consciousness that we apply to it. So the evildoers have been doing this for a very long time, and they've stayed on top of their game as a result. We need to be doing more of the same. But just by way of some examples of how we have a satanically inverted society, where everything is the opposite to what we're told. I mean, pretty much everything we've ever been taught through mainstream academia turns out to be a lie, as so many people are coming to realise in these times through the benefit of being able to do independent research for ourselves. We realise that things like the Big Bang Theory, we realise that the idea of dinosaurs, we realise that the idea of the Earth being a spinning ball, hurtling through the infinite vacuum of space in 4 different directions at once, even though we don't feel a thing, is a lie. We realise that everything that has ever come out of NASA is a lie. We realise that the moon landings are pretty much the biggest joke that's ever been played on humanity. Nobody has been to the moon. In my view, it's not even a solid object that you can land a rocket on. It's a luminary. We've been lied to about the distance of the sun from the Earth. 93 million miles doesn't really seem that feasible when you really apply a bit of critical thought to it, does it? This was another method of truth discernment, the Trivium Method, which used to be taught in schools many decades or centuries ago in different parts of the world. And this taught the concept of grammar, logic, rhetoric. It's taking in information from a vast array of different sources, collating, aggregating it, bringing it all together, weeding out the inconsistencies, seeing what cross-checks and cross-references with other pieces of information, and then discerning the truth through that method, and then, most importantly, speaking that truth, communicating what you've come to discover to others. That was the basis of the Trivium Method of education. It speaks volumes that that's been absent from school curriculums for a very long time. And that can be expanded out to the quadrivium, so you have 7 so-called liberal arts as part of that whole process. But anyway, back to the satanic inversion. Look at the way that plays out in present-day scenarios. So we have a situation presented to us through the mainstream media and through governments whereby those who obey tyrannical rules and regulations and dictates, those who adhere to a psychological operation which is designed to destroy humanity as we know it, to lead to vast population reduction, the killing off of so-called useless eaters, we'll get onto that. Those who adhere to this, those who obey every dictate that comes their way, and those who coerce others into behaviour that goes against their own self-interests and those of their families, their children, those who blindly, unquestioningly take an unknown substance prepared by who knows who knows where, containing who knows what, into their very body through their bloodstream. Those that do this, and then those who demonize others who question this entire narrative and ask what might be in these things and why the coercion towards getting so many people to take it has been stepped up to such fanatical levels. Those members of society get demonized and vilified by those who blindly follow the agenda. Those people are portrayed as good citizens, good people. Apparently, there's virtue in compliance with tyranny, when in fact the opposite is actually the case. To restate that well-worn phrase, when tyranny becomes law, resistance becomes duty. So those who are resisting these threats to their own personal safety and the future prospects for their own children and grandchildren and the future of humanity in general, those who are applying critical thought to this situation, who are asking the right questions, who are doing their own research, and who are, in that last aspect of the trivium process, speaking their rhetoric, communicating what they've found, trying to open the eyes of others to the actual truth of the matter. These people are portrayed as bad, anti-Vias. There's another thing. I can't even say certain phrases if I want to remain on this platform because of the AI algorithms detecting certain words and going, oh, he mentioned that, let's take him down. But people will know what I mean. Anti-Vias, conspiracy theorists, sea deniers, all these trigger phrases that have been invented by social engineers to immediately push the buttons of those who don't apply critical thought to a situation and allow themselves to be manipulated by master psychologists, which is what's going on. So, of course, the opposite is actually the case. Those of us who are questioning, those of us who are opposing the tyranny, those amongst us who are launching these cases, these illustrations of resistance to the tyranny and the madness that's going on. We've got the case that's been filed by the team, including Mark Sexton, the retired police constable, Philip Hyland, the lawyer, Dr. Sam White, and many others. And this alleges genocide, crimes against humanity, on the part of the head honchos of many of these big pharma corporations and the governments of the world, and nice people like Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab. Shouldn't really call them that. Not really people. But you know what I mean. So that case has been launched. It's been filed with the Metropolitan Police. And I know that the Deputy Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police just happens to be one Bas Javid, brother of Savage Javid, which is an unfortunate thing. But even in spite of that, from what I can see, this case seems to be getting some traction. People might be familiar with a video that's been doing the rounds on social media these past couple of days of this woman speaking to a GP at her local surgery. She's recording the call. The telephone number of the surgery is visible. It's in Chichester, I believe. And people have checked out the number and confirmed that it's a very real surgery. And this woman is talking to the doctor about getting her B to the V. And the doctor is saying that she advises against it. She said, oh, please, don't do that. There's no need to get the B. And from what I've heard, these Vs are going to get withdrawn very soon over safety concerns. And at the same time, we've had rumours and whispers in the mainstream press that Boris Johnson, isn't it a miracle that that man, if you can call him a man, is still holding on to his job? And how is Anthony Fauci still in work? How's he still got a job, let alone his liberty and freedom? I mean, that's another matter, but hopefully all these things are going to come to an end very soon. It would be nice to think that 2022 is going to be the year that common sense returns to our world, and a bit of justice wouldn't go amiss either. Divine intervention would be a nice thing. Anyway, according to Boris Johnson, obviously just trying to save his skin and desperately cling on to his job, seemingly, all remaining C restrictions are apparently to be removed in England, at least. Hopefully the rest of the UK will follow very soon. So you have to wonder whether that case being lodged with the Metropolitan Police, who are now duty-bound to investigate it, it's been given a crime reference number, so it's official. Many people are putting the pressure on their own police forces to investigate further as well. The chief constables of every police force in the UK have been advised of this case. Everyone in these positions of apparent power will be aware that this is going on. So you have to wonder whether all this talk of restrictions being removed and the V program being stopped, which is one of the commands of this case that's been lodged, whether these are in direct response to this case being launched. I personally feel that they are. But anyway, you've got those who have been opposing the madness and the taking away of rights and freedoms, which are natural and inherent to all sovereign beings everywhere. Those who have opposed this have been painted as villains, and those who have been going along with it are the heroes of this piece, in this bastardized, satanically inverted society that we have. As I've said many times, when this is all over, everyone's role will be remembered. Those that complied will be viewed in the rightful light as those who assisted in facilitating the attempted takeover of humanity. and the destruction of humanity, because it won't happen. And those who did resist, those who could see it for what it is, those who did embrace the values of common sense and truth and appreciation of freedom, will be viewed in their rightful light as well, as will all those brave, courageous activists who've put up some very physical, very tangible resistance to all of this. So the satanic inversion in society has been with us for a long time, and my mind goes back to the 80s. Anyone of a similar generation to me might recall that back in that decade, you had words, the meaning of words started to be reversed. So that's when you had bad meaning good. So, Michael Jackson's album Bad, it wasn't portrayed as him being evil. It was portrayed as him being, streetwise and cool. It's cool to be bad. And then you had the word wicked, which came out in the 80s. Lenny Henry's Delbert Wilkins pirate radio character used to use that phrase, crucial and wicked. And wicked was portrayed as, again, something that's good. If something's wicked, it's, yeah, wicked, bruv, great, brilliant. And it was the same thing with sick. That's been a more recent thing, but that's got into parlance among young people. They say, that's a sick tune, bruv. Yeah, that's a sick pair of trainers. Doesn't mean they're bad, it means they're good. Everything's been reversed. So it seems there's been some entrainment there. And it was a bit of a precursor to woke culture when you think about it, going on back in the 80s. And now we've got this cultural Marxism in society, which I spoke about on the last video, where young people are being coerced into groupthink and entrained in what it's acceptable to think about a situation and what's deemed somewhere you just don't go. And young people, to a very large extent, are adhering to this. So the social engineers got their claws into this one very early on. And so what we're hearing in current times, through documents that have been leaked, through whistleblowers that have come forward, through information that it's possible to uncover, if the will is there and if you go to the right places, is talk among the so-called elite ruling class of the likes of us, regular people, the goyim, as useless eaters. That's a phrase that's been used by Planned Parenthood, that eugenics operation, helmed for a time by the father of Bill Gates, William Gates Sr., and that lovely lady, Margaret Sanger, who spoke of certain groups in society as being human weeds that need to be eradicated. So they've been referring to us as the useless eaters. I believe Henry Kissinger made a quote along those lines as well. And he certainly spoke of military men as dumb, useless animals. That's how they see us. But isn't it the truth that they are the useless eaters? Think about what a scourge on the earth and all its resources the so-called elite ruling class really is. All these corporations that rape and pillage natural resources. And of course so much death and destruction and suffering in their wake. Oil companies, gas companies, so-called food companies like Monsanto, those that have chopped down vast swathes of rainforest to make way for cattle grazing for meat companies. Just all the death and destruction and suffering that the meat industry and everything associated with it has caused as well to animals, living sentient beings. Just think about everything that's happened at the hands of this class that we're talking about. And they call us the useless eaters? We're told that the world is overpopulated to try and help justify this agenda of population reduction that they've got. And that's in full swing now, as we can see, through the V program, which is designed long-term to wipe out a large proportion of humanity. We're not the useless eaters, and we're not overpopulated either. There's not too many of us. All that's happened is that too many people have been herded into large cities and large urban areas of living. You'll find the truth of the matter is that there are large parts of the earth where there are still untapped natural resources and huge areas where no humans currently live, but could if things were spread out more. But under Agenda 2030, coming through the United Nations, helmed by and funded by, of course, Bill Gates, I'll start a Bill Gates drinking game soon, where every time I mention his name in one of these videos, you take a swig of a liquor of your choice. You will be under the table by the end of the video. So the United Nations Agenda 2030 is all about getting people into these smart cities, these human settlement zones, getting them off the land so that the huge rural areas around the world are free to be raped and pillaged and exploited all the more by these so-called Illuminati corporations, part of this same class that we're talking about. And they call us the useless eaters. Is that not the very definition of these abominations of humanity who, from what we hear, and there's plenty of evidence to show that this is the case, rape and torture children, engage in dark, ritualistic, satanic practices, black masses, dark sorcery to enslave and dominate the rest of humanity. They engage in these kinds of practices. Other kinds of horrors as well that I don't want to get into on this video, but I'm sure many people have done that kind of research. They are the very definition of useless eaters. They're the leeches. They're the parasites that need to be eradicated. They're the ones that need to go, not the rest of us. Their time is up, has to come to an end. Here's a comment that was given to me by email by way of feedback to the last video. It speaks to this dynamic that I'm unveiling here. They want us to believe that we are savage, violent, dangerous, and in danger from each other. We need protection, that we cannot survive without them. The planet cannot support us. We cannot produce food without them. We cannot survive without these arm spears, as the lads from Sheep Farm Studios refer to it as. The truth is that there would be heaven on earth without satanic rule. That is the truth. And there's a quote here from Arundhati Roy, which has been doing the rounds on the internet as well. It reads, "The system will collapse if we refuse to buy what they are selling. Their ideas, their version of history, their wars, their weapons, their notions of inevitability. Remember this, we be many and they be few. They need us more than we need them. Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing." Isn't it just the truth that they need us to prop up and support their artificial satanic systems way more than we need them? It's been demonstrated so many times that we can organise ourselves into cooperative communities, that we can find our own ways of generating all the resources that we need to live in groups and communities, and that it is possible to unplug from what's been referred to as organised society. There are so many hubs, so many freedom groups springing up all over the world now. It's so heartening to see. Not only is there resistance and pushback to the tyranny in terms of activists, in terms of freedom rallies and marches, more of that on the way, but there are also so many of these hubs springing up where people are coming together to pool their resources and their ideas, and where you get a group of many hearts and minds coming together, you have many skill sets within that group, and problems can be solved and solutions can be arrived at when these people get together and iron out these apparent problems. Solutions are very quick to emerge in group situations like that. And that's happening. And it's only going to continue to happen as more and more people wake up to the truth of what's being done to us, what lies at the end of all this if we allow it to reach its conclusion, which it won't. And more people organise themselves into these types of communities. They have entrained us as humanity collectively into believing that we need the systems that they offer through organised society, that this represents the apex of the progression of human evolution, when in fact these ways of living, which the vast majority of people on the earth plane indulge in, represent regression of the way we really should be living, in harmony with nature, in accordance with our true potential. And these other ways, which are now springing up through these different hubs, these different self-supportive communities, are the way that nature designed humans to live. We get it all in reverse. A satanically inverted society. I mean, a very amusing visual expression of that comes from Bill Gates himself. Because even his fucking smile is inverted. Have you noticed? When he does his Duper's Delight smirk, his mouth goes downwards. The smile is inverted. It's the opposite way to what smiles should be. I think that's a beautiful illustration of this dynamic, and Bill Gates stands as the very personification of evil and satanic inversion. And he will get his. That's coming. Other things I wanted to mention. It's great to see Mark Passio back broadcasting with his weekly What on Earth is Happening podcast. So he started a couple of weekends ago. It's on live from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that equates to 8 to 11 p.m. UK time on a Sunday. Back on top form. Also great to see that he's unleashed his natural law documentary, Mark Passio and the Science of Natural Law. So I don't agree with everything that Mark Passio says. I don't agree with everything that any researcher says 100%. And I differ with Mark on a few things, including cosmology. But that doesn't matter, because at the very crux of his work, everything that he puts across is absolutely bang on the money. And I've learnt a lot from him about the dynamics of natural law. And this is all expressed in this brand new documentary. So he breaks down how these universal laws of nature set into the very fabric of creation and this realm of existence, how they all work. So for anyone new to the subject, this is a great way of introducing them to the concepts of right action, morality, human consciousness, how consequentialism and cause and effect work to dish out appropriate karmic consequences according to chosen behaviours and actions. So this is now available for free. Mark's made it available via his whatonearthishappening.com site. It's also on his YouTube and his Odyssey. So you can download this documentary for free, and I thoroughly recommend sharing this with friends and family members, normies, work colleagues, whatever, people that have yet to wake up to these great spiritual truths and how they're playing out in the experiences that we're all having in these times. Now, a very key point that is made in this documentary, and which Mark Passio has made many times, is it's one thing to take on all this knowledge when you first come across it, to deeply absorb within yourself a comprehension of natural law dynamics and how our chosen behaviours influence the play out of events in our own lives and in society as a whole. It's one thing to take on those comprehensions, but it's not enough. That doesn't change anything. It might change one individual's behaviour, but what you need to be doing when you take on this knowledge is to be sharing it as widely and as effectively as you possibly can with as many others as you can possibly reach. With this knowledge comes the duty and the responsibility to get it out there and share it. Now, not everyone can do a podcast or a video. There are different reasons, family situations, personal circumstances, which might prevent somebody from doing that. Maybe people will feel they don't have the skill sets to get in front of a camera or a microphone and speak their truth. Maybe they're not great at writing. Maybe they're not great at communicating in these different ways. But you can still spread the word and spread the message. I mean, Mark feels that everyone should be doing this online so they reach as many people as possible. I feel there are circumstances which may prevent some people from being able to do that, in which case they need to be reaching out to as many people in their lives as they can, in their personal situations, friends, family members, colleagues, people that they meet as they go about their daily business. This knowledge, this information needs to be communicated as widely as possible, and everyone can do this. There is a phrase that's often attributed to John F. Kennedy. It's disputed as to whether he actually said this, but it doesn't really matter because the phrase itself stands as a wonderful illustration of what I'm talking about here. And the quote reads, "One person can make a difference and everyone should try." And they absolutely should. So I'll leave that one there. Again, I thoroughly recommend that people download the Mark Passio and the Science of Natural Law documentary and keep watching his weekly podcast, which is running now through to July of this year. Little bit of feedback to the last video from a good friend of mine who messaged in. I was talking about woke culture, the creation of it through social engineering. And my good friend here wrote, "My late mum always said, 'Damn Germaine Greer and her Burn Your Bra campaign.' I can hear mum's words now. That woman has destroyed families and forced housewives to leave their children and feel forced to go out and work. I've tried to say that men and women are different and have a different role, just like in nature, but for some it falls on deaf ears. The generations coming up now have such a skewed version of reality, and trying to point it out makes you look like you have two heads and a hand growing out of your arse. We have life instructions literally inscribed upon our souls and in our DNA, but outside influences can cloud that up by trying to pour false ideologies directly into us. And people tell themselves it's right because it sounds so good on paper and in theory. But that's how life works. We're not designed to follow outside ideologies. We are designed to make life into a journey of discovery within and without. But I believe there is a spark within humanity that is unpredictable and desires to be free, even if it kills us. They can't factor that in to their lazy algorithms. They think that all of us are just dumb cattle, useless eaters, waiting to walk off the cliff. They're going to find out firsthand what it means to be a human being with a soul. Even if they lack one themselves, they're going to find out what we are all capable of. It's been written in stone. We're on the winning team. We were born for it. Nobody said this would be easy, but we find ourselves in this situation anyway. And it's what our souls, our spirits, need and desire to evolve. Lessons we need to learn. Thanks so much to my friend for that email. Now, in the roll call of honour for 2021 that I did a couple of videos back, where I was shouting out and giving honourable mentions to those activists and broadcasters that had influenced me the most over the previous 12 months and really inspired me with their messages, I knew there were going to be some names that I would forget to mention. Not intentionally, but there would just be people that would slip my mind. And sure enough, this was the case. I finished that video and almost straight away I was like, damn, should have mentioned this individual. So I just want to set that straight now by giving an honourable nod to a few names that I missed. My bro, Lance, Double LMC, of course, and the Rise Above crew. How could I forget this guy? Good friend of mine. We've known each other for years. I've been down there to guest on his Rise Above podcast on a Friday night on a few occasions, hopefully going back. And these guys do a brilliant job of broadcasting live every Friday night with a video podcast. And they get into whatever subjects come along. It's completely spontaneous, completely free flow. And they do a great job. Their knowledge is incredible. Their research is impeccable. I thoroughly recommend looking up the Rise Above podcast and giving these guys a listen. Hugo Talks Lockdown. This guy has done a brilliant job over the past several months of exposing different aspects of the agenda. His research, again, is top-notch. Big shout to Hugo. On the DJ front, I mentioned Danny Rampling, but also Slipmat needs a respectful nod. I met this guy at the art exhibition in Shoreditch just before Christmas, where Kerry Murray's work photographing many of the freedom events around the UK was being displayed, and Slipmat was in attendance there, had a brief chat with him. He stands as a very rare example within the DJ community of someone who's prepared to stick his head above the parapet and say what needs to be said. So much respect to Slipmat of Slipmat and Lime SL2 from back in the day. On a ragger tip, all that good stuff for those who know, those who remember. Dr. Kevin Corbett, I mentioned Dr. Muhammad Adil last time, but Kevin Corbett, of course, has been a wonderful activist and a great voice from the medical community who's come out and said things that need to be said. So much respect to Kevin for doing the right thing. Katie Hopkins. There's another unlikely name. Just like Right Said Fred and Gillian McKeith. Who would ever believe that these people would be standing up for right action in these times? But they are. And Katie Hopkins, much as I used to dislike her and found her very obnoxious and deliberately controversial, has really stepped up to the plate in this narrative. And she's put out some very incisive and impactful videos that have doubtless reached many millions of people and hopefully influenced them to make some changes and do some research. So big props to Katie Hopkins. Never thought I'd say it, but there, I've said it. Also, Geza Tariani, Geza Frackman as he's known, the very definition of an activist. He's been taking it to the streets. He's camped out outside Savage Jabid's home and served his family with papers, notices of liability. He's been outside the headquarters of big pharma corporations. He gets arrested regularly, inevitably, and he's catching up Piers Corbyn for his number of arrests. So big respect to Geza Tariani for some very direct action out there as well. My younger daughter and myself get to move in to our new home in a few days on Friday. And this is all down to the incredible support that I've received on the fundraiser from so many people out there. So I just want to express my deep and sincere gratitude for the very humbling response to that campaign. I now have enough to cover 6 months' rent plus bills to base myself in a new home. I'll still be putting out videos from this familiar location during the day, but I'll be basing myself in the new place for other aspects of my work. So I just want to thank everyone once again for their contributions, and I'll do a quick video once we move into the new place just to show you where I'm basing myself now. It's right out in the middle of nowhere in a very rural area, so the sort of place where you might be able to start a cooperative community actually and get off grid. The next meditation I want to curate is for the 2nd of February. So we're up to 2-2. The last one was on New Year's Day, 1-1. This is going to be an incredible one in terms of the numbers. We're doing it on the 2nd of February, 2022. That's 2-2-22. And I propose that as many as possible who can get involved do so at 2:22 p.m. Wouldn't that be a beautiful thing to harness the magical power of these numbers and have a meditation going on 2222 at 222. If people can't make 222, if that's inconvenient for you in terms of your life situation, then any time on that day will do. Any time you can put your mind to it on the 2nd of February would be great. We're just going to get as many hearts, minds and souls as possible all over the world to partake in this one. If you're in a different time zone to London, England, then whatever equates to 2:22 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time will work for you. But any time that you can put your consciousness to it, it would be great to have millions of people involved in this one, meditating, focusing their intention, their will, their vision on a better deal for humanity. The restoration of the values of truth, freedom, justice, love. I mean, who really thinks that all this collective intent just goes nowhere, just goes like steam into the ether and fizzles out and doesn't have an effect? It does. This stuff works. And as I've said before, we could well be in a much worse situation worldwide, and particularly in this nation, if we weren't doing these things. So let's keep them going. Put 222, 22, all the twos in your diary to be a part of that one. Upcoming talk events I want to mention. This coming Saturday, the 22nd, more twos, 22nd of January, worldwide rallies for freedom happening all over the world and all over the UK. Many major towns and cities have got one of these going on. I suspect the one in London this coming weekend is going to be absolutely huge in spite of the weather. I myself am going to be speaking in Oxford, my birth city. I've been invited to go and deliver a speech there as part of the Freedom Rally that's taking place in Bond Square at 1 p.m. I believe there's a march after that, but there's a number of speakers on the bill for that. I'm likely to be on quite early, so if anyone can make it to Bond Square, Oxford, catch me for a speech there on Saturday. The following day, Sunday the 23rd, I'm going to be doing a Musical Truth 3 Soundbites Tour presentation in Runcorn, Cheshire. Quite close to Manchester up there, stone's throw from Liverpool. And this is going to be at the Lockdown Cafe in that particular town. It's a daytime event. It kicks off round about 1 o'clock, probably running to about 4 p.m. Anyone that can make it to the Lockdown Cafe in Runcorn, see you there Sunday. The following day, Monday the 24th, the same tour, the same presentation I'll be doing in Chesterfield. Now, the organisers of this have asked for the venue to be kept under wraps. Anyone that's interested in attending is invited to contact Steve, the organiser, via the details that I'll put in the show notes below. But if you can make it to Chesterfield on Monday evening, this one kicks off at about 7 p.m. I'll be doing a presentation there. The next ones after that are in Beverley, very close to Hull, on Tuesday the 1st of February. Then I'm going to be on the Isle of Wight, actually, on Saturday the 5th of February as part of the Uprise and Shine conference that's taken place there at the Winter Gardens in Ventnor, Isle of Wight. If you can make it across, hope to see as many of you as possible there. These events are great. They're all about establishing freedom hubs and bringing tribes together to establish solutions. Big shout to Karen and everyone else involved in the Uprise conferences. Upcoming podcasts and shows I want to mention. I'm going to be guesting on the Infinite Fringe podcast with my dude Billy Ray Valentine very soon, talking about aspects of the new book. I want to present some of these sound bites. I want to run through some of these stories and these little vignettes that I've got as part of the new book. So listen out for the Infinite Fringe. That's a great show. Billy does a wonderful job as a host. I went on the podcast of Simon Laurie King recently. We recorded that. That's due to be released any day now. I will, of course, put the links to it in all my platforms as soon as I get them. And also this week, I'm due to make an appearance in the studios of Iconic. I'm going to be guesting on Right Now with Gareth Ike. And we're going to be in person together in the studio talking about different aspects of the book. And I'm sure we'll get into current events as well. And I'll be talking about my perspectives on stuff that's going on, rather like I do in these videos. I will also be getting back on the Sheep Farm podcast with those guys, Dom and Chris. Unfortunately, we had to postpone the date that we had in the diary by a few days, but that'll be coming up very soon, and I'm looking forward to hopefully having a bit of a laugh with those guys and the wonderful job that they do with their podcast. Also, a fantastic job done by Roark, who interviewed me in a truth taxi type scenario as I was driving along the south coast, Hayling Island, in his neck of the woods, and he was putting some questions to me from the back of the car. We were getting filmed, and this was for his Yokebusters channel, which is on BitChute. He does a show with Janie on a regular basis there, and I really enjoyed that. That was a different kind of experience, driving and talking. I love driving. I can really gather my thoughts while I'm at the wheel. And I think Roark put some very challenging questions to me, and I'm pretty happy with how that whole thing turned out. So I'll put a link to that in the notes below. That was a really good experience to get into. And do check out Roark's channel for more of the same. So that's pretty much it for now. I hope the message on today's video really resonates. Just to recap, they are the useless eaters. Everything in society is satanically inverted, even down to Bill Gates' smirk. And reversing all of that is the key to reversing this madness that we're all undergoing. There was a great album the other year, now I think of it, by the conscious rapper known as Elias Clay. And she called her album Reverse Hypnosis because it was all about undoing the mind control spells that we've all been under through all of our lives. But we're learning the methods and the tactics that have been used against us. The cat is out of the bag. The genie is out of the bottle, whichever metaphor you want to use. It's now so obvious what they're doing to us and what they have been doing. We can know this now. And that knowledge is the key to undoing it all and putting it all down. We've just got to get it out there to as many as possible and utilise this fantastic opportunity that's been afforded to us. Let's all keep that process going and all do what we can, and we will get the kind of outcome that we're all looking for here. See you next time.